The Dell computer to many is a symbol of modern computing, and these systems were never meant for gaming, but that's what we're going to try and do today. It's such a shame that in the current state of PC gaming markets, companies have thrown us out for the short-term gains of AI money, but a system like this works for what I would want to do with it. So today I asked a question, because recently I got a 4K monitor, and while it's excellent for media consumption, I like playing games at 4K. I had a wacky idea. Can you put in a low-profile card in an old PC and game at 4K? Alright, enough of me ripping GHG. From here on out, it's all original. 10 years ago, the idea of 4K gaming was almost unimaginable for most people, and yet they tried to make it happen. The Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro promised 4K gaming, but the general conclusion of the public was that it was too early and the hardware was not powerful enough to push that amount of pixels at the same rate that games began demanding stricter requirements. There really, in my opinion, has not been a worse time than right now to get into PC gaming as far as buying or building a system. 4K gaming still isn't attainable to most people. A traditional budget build often involves buying an office tower, throwing in a low-profile GPU, and calling it a day. And since I acquired this Optiplex, it wasn't initially the plan, but I figured why not. This particular unit, released in 2015, has an Intel Core i7-6700-67, which was really a decent CPU in its day, probably making you think about the 6700K, which was the gaming CPU of its time, seeing only marginal increases the next year until the much bigger improvement of the 87 and 9700K, with 2 extra cores and 4 extra threads. The GPU of choice today to pair with this CPU is the RX 6400. It's on AMD's RDNA 2 GPU architecture as opposed to the unfortunate Vega, and it's between a rock and a hard place to an extent. Its older brother, the 6500 XT, is one of the worst GPUs of all time, and one of the only ones in recent memory to get worse from the previous to the current generation. The 5500 XT outperforms it. The RX 6400 doesn't look much better in comparison. Its memory bus is 64-bit comparing to most GPUs having 128 or higher, and the other thing you might be asking is, why not go for a low-profile NVIDIA card? And those are all decent cards. But my biggest factors here, of which there are 2, price and compatibility. A lot of NVIDIA cards have difficulty playing older games, though the big one is complicated, and you'll see more once we get there. The price is important. I paid a little under what this card launched for, and most of these NVIDIA cards go for $50 to $150 more, and to me, that defeats the purpose of this being a relatively obtainable system. In terms of just the GPU's gaming performance, we're somewhere around PS4 Pro, but it's complicated. Now, getting this system up and going is a problem. The motherboard physically lacks a TPM 2.0 chip, so there's no way we can use Windows 11, so I didn't. If there are 2 groups of people who know how to continue to use old hardware and drive it into the ground, it's retro gamers and Linux enthusiasts, and there's often a large overlap between those categories. I know I said I wouldn't make another Linux video. This is a video about gaming in 4K on a system that should not at all, in the modern landscape of PC gaming, be capable of such a feat. And for this feat, Linux is required, and so I went with CachyOS. It's based on Arch Linux, which is already a fairly minimal system you can set up with basic gaming software like Steam, Heroic Launcher, and Lutris, and you can set up emulators through a program type called Flatpak, which in my experience tends to work better than compiling for the system or using a compiled binary. CachyOS has a few excellent things about it, making it essentially required. It uses KDE Plasma by default unless you choose to opt out of that. It feels similar to what you would have wanted desktop-wise from the Windows 10 era. CachyOS also has a new addition called VRAM Management Tweaks, which changes how the graphics protocol utilizes VRAM for the PC. Essentially, if your graphics card has less than 8 gigs of VRAM on your system, you can see massive performance gains. Windows does not have this. Windows is getting more bloated with every update, and this feature alone essentially makes CachyOS a requirement for this PC because the RX 6400 only has 4 gigs of VRAM, and when you game at 4K, that fills up very quickly. And speaking of filling up quickly, I like to rework our benchmarking expectations. We are essentially asking an old dog to learn new tricks and fetch like he used to. And if I'm being honest with you, I honestly don't expect much to run on the system at more than 60-70 FPS at 4K, honestly at all. So let's get right into the benchmarks. Persona 5 Royal ran nearly identical at each resolution I tested, with maybe a 10 FPS jump from the performance at 4K to 1080 and 900p of about 50 FPS. At 4K I would probably give it a solid C tier. I would say for my limited testing you'd have a decent time at 1080 or 900p, just like the PS4, PS4 Pro. It's 900p gate all over again. Dusk, the boomer shooter, ran very well most of the time, with there being some fairly awful 1% and 0.1% lows. Most of the time we were over 100 FPS, and with a game like this, the more the better. What a great game, absolutely playable, definitely an S tier of 4K, and at every resolution lower, just don't run anything else at the same time. Straftat, the lightning-fast Unreal Tournament-style arena shooter with friends, ran at a cinematic 24 FPS at 4K, which, while is great for movies, you want to be able to react quickly in a shooter. And the best resolution for this game, again, is 900p, which got it up to an A+ for my scoring. Right around 100 FPS, but considering the 1% lows, I'd probably give it an A over an S. With certain games, the 1% and 0.1% are much more potent here due to our power and VRAM constraints. Minecraft, with the fabulously optimized mod pack from Modrinth, ran the game at 4K with 10 chunks at about 80 to 90 FPS, and with BSL shaders high profile, it ran the game at about 30. Not bad. If you're okay lowering to a much lower res with shaders, you could get easily over 144 FPS. I was able to hit my monitor's refresh rate at 900 and 720p respectively.
I'm Dracula. I'm 12 million years old. I come from a long bloodline of Italian leather. My bodegas have veins pumping through them. Smoking indigenous Bronto leaf in a bacon, egg, and cheese. Hashtag Leche Mendoroy. My diamonds come from the most horrific situations possible.
Half-Life 2 expectedly ran well with some tough 1% lows here and there, especially during combat or higher intensity sections. I'm thinking especially of the first real level when the Combine soldiers drop the explosive barrels in the water. Balatro will run on anything. Oh, this is unfucking playable. Well, it is playable if you enjoy watching movies, I'll say that. Risk of Rain 2 proved to be a bit much for the system to handle at higher resolution, scoring a cinematic C- at 4K and a B- at 1440, with the sweet spot being around 900p once again. This PC really is just a PS4, huh? Okay, now this is actually smooth gameplay. It's pretty decent. CS2 really surprised me. It didn't quite hit 60 FPS at 4K, but it was more than playable. I even had a pretty good time taking out some bots on the Office map. B+ at 4K and infinitely better when you turn down the res. Borderlands 3 is not really playable until, you guessed it, 900p. Theoretically playable at 4K, but it gets a D- from me. Doom Eternal gets the only F at 4K because it crashed. I tried again at 720p and I would give it an A+ for being around 90 FPS consistently. Schedule 1 is one of the weirder games here for lack or pro of optimization. It runs about the same, 40 to 50 FPS at most resolutions except 4K where it's about 10 to 15 FPS lower. You could run this one at 1440p and have a very solid experience here. And lastly, but certainly leastly, Persona 3 Reload gets a D- for the fact it crawls at 4K. I'm talking 1 to 10 FPS with an average of 3. I struggled to get an acceptable frame rate at any other resolution as well, which is almost certainly both a power and VRAM constraint here, but relaunching and immediately going to the PS4's resolution solved the issue. B+ at 900, A+ at 720, and if you're feeling frisky, an S- at 960 by 540. I wanted to make this video due to the overwhelming difficulty of building a PC or getting into PC gaming right now. Price increases are pricing out the average consumer and people on the low end. And the Steam machine, the Switch 2, everything is proving it right now. And that's the crux. People just want to play a game. And when their system can no longer play a game or they can't afford the hobby, emphasis on hobby by the way, because none of us need this to survive, the people move on to other things and find new interests, and you lose customers in the process. When my first desktop stopped being able to play new games, I got into other hobbies like music and manga. It's not clear what's going to happen, but it's clear big tech wants us to subscribe and rent forever. Whether that is cloud gaming or whatever their ultimate objective is visualized as, it's pretty clear what that is. The truth here with finding a system like this is that hardware 10 years ago is much closer to what we have now than what it was to 10 years before that. And if you're willing to get dirty with your computer and software, you've got a pretty capable little system here. You wouldn't want to play anything on this guy at 4K, most likely, and probably not at 1440p either unless you're talking emulation. When I saw a video from this creator Wavelengths recently where he talks about emulating in gaming handhelds, he says something along the lines of maybe don't buy used 3DSs anymore. The most important thing should be playing the video game.
The most important thing, to be clear, should be playing the video games. I know a lot of people in this hobby just like buy things and then set them up and fiddle around with them and then they put them in a big bag and that's it. You don't have to do that. You can play the video. You can even finish the video games.
So often in this space, and in the space of the similar hobbies, it's the focus of the moment. Shiny object syndrome. There's no longevity or focus. It's the perpetual unsustainability, and I'm certainly a victim of the same thing. I bought an AYN Thor, and I have been loving it. But the thing is, everything the Thor can do, I can do on this Dell right here. It would be jank, but a quick USB stylus touchpad and a controller, easy. Ultimately, the purpose with a video like this can be to show you that yes, potentially some people's best upgrade this year might be their display. You can get a lot out of a new higher res display, especially if you have a pretty mid-tier PC. Even more proof of that being the case if you're not picky about your frame rates. This Dell can most certainly perform if you're not picky and you'll take what you can get. And if you're into media consumption, a 4K monitor like this, perfect upgrade. Anyway, that's all that I've got. Thank you so much for watching. A Dank Pancake out.